Welcome back to the weekend wrap. No production, just my thoughts. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, enemy, all in between. I appreciate that. Channel's been a little sparse this week. There has been a few bits and pieces to talk about, but I've been doing some other things. I did some content, obviously, if you would have seen on the Undefeated podcast channel. I did some interviews with Dan Aziz, Joshua Boazzi, Caroline Dubois, so feel free to jump over there, check some of that stuff out. But yeah, next week we'll be back to sort of normal scheduled programming with a majority of content between Wednesday to Sunday as usual. But with that being said, it's been a pretty decent weekend of boxing, if I'm gonna be real. It's been some major talking points, been some under the radar type stuff that some of you may not know about, may not even care about. But I'll try and recap as much stuff as I can, and this one will be pretty short. Taking over to, I was at York Hall on Friday for the Queensbury show, which was headlined by Zurdo against Luca Duotenzi. Ellis is he's a friend of my cousin's, so I had some big interest in that fight, to be totally honest. I went to try and catch him after the fight. It didn't quite work out, but it is what it is. Real quick though, got to shout out the actual show itself. It was a pretty entertaining show. Queensbury did a nice, good sort of, small hall, quote unquote, show with some of the up and coming prospects. The fight of the night, without question, was Joshua Frankham versus George Davey. Frankham ended up winning the fight 76-75 on the cards. He also was knocked down in the 6th round of the fight. I disagreed with the scorecard. I actually had it 75-76 to Davey. I felt it was 4 rounds apiece, plus the knockdown meant that Davey should have won, in my personal opinion. But it was one of those fights where there were some close rounds at the start of the fight, and then towards the end it was a bit, I guess it was what you like. So it wasn't, the type of fight I'm gonna, cry and robbery and blah blah blah. But I do think Davey was hard done by, and him being, I guess, the technical B-side in that fight, maybe that's the reason why it took place that way. But yeah, brilliant fight, and I'd like them to run it back if they could. I thought that was a really good show, and if you've watched it on TNT Sports, then hopefully you'd agree. Sticking on that card real quick, there was Masood Abdullah against Mark Leach. I'm not sure what regional title it was for, but I know basically I had predicted Masood Abdullah to get the victory. Now, I was predicting for him to go points because Mark Leach very rarely gets stopped. He doesn't have great power, but he's got really good fundamentals, defense, footwork, movement, and is able to kind of keep himself safe. But Leach pretty much stuck on him from round 1 up till round 7, when the fight was eventually called off in the corner. Yeah, he just basically, he came in and was taking shots on the entry, but because Leach just doesn't have the power, I just think Masood ultimately didn't respect it and just said, all right, cool, I'm just going to walk through this and I'm going to, unload my shots on you and let's see if you can take them. The first few rounds was okay, but Leach just started to wither under the pressure, the shots just became harder and harder to evade and subdue, and yeah, ultimately that was that. Obviously, Zurdo did get the victory. I was hoping that he would end it via knockout, because then that would have won me some money, but Luca Duotenzi hasn't been stopped before, and based on the actual fight and how it went, I can kind of see why. The only way you're really going to stop him is punches in bunches and from angles that he doesn't see, and Ellis isn't quite at that kind of level to be able to, pivot off the, sort of out of range, out of reach, and then hit him from blind spots and stagger him in that sense. Something a bit weird happened in the 3rd round where it looked like he took a bit of an innocuous shot and then he stumbled back into the ropes and Hortense sort of charged at him, but his sort of good lateral, his upper body movement and defense managed to keep him safe in that moment of crisis. But I'd have to see it again on TV to figure out what happened there. But he got through it comfortably enough. I thought the scorecards were a lot closer than what the judges gave it. I did have it 96-94 to Zurdo, but they had it like, I think it was like 99-91 and then 98-92, something like that. So yeah, they was obviously much more favourable than I was, but hey, that's the breaks. Quickly, there was a Japanese card on as well. I think it was a Komeda Promotions card. I didn't get to see it for some reason. My VPN didn't work. I need to get the only one that works for the app that it has is the Express VPN, and I didn't have Express on that time. But I know that Udai and Jinjiro both won belts. Jinjiro beat Villanova via KO, I think, in the 5th round. So much respect to him. I did sort of predict they would get a knockout there. Udai got a points decision as I was expecting. But Lerato Giamini, who's South African, actually beat what's his name, Tamaki Komeda, in an upset victory, considering that, you know, Komeda's, I think it's his brother or his uncle that runs the actual promotion. So yeah, but well done to Lamini. I haven't seen it, but by rights it was a split decision, so I guess he definitely did kind of deserve it. Moving over to Denmark, there was Sarah Mahfoud versus Marcela Acuna. She got I think it was a unanimous decision victory over Acuna, which I was predicting as well, so congrats to her. And the shock for me of the weekend, even though it wasn't a shock to the bookies, but I thought that Kim Clavel, she would take over and beat Evelyn Bermudez. But Evelyn got the split decision. And if you look at the scorecards, they were a bit weird. Evelyn's scorecards were both 96-94, but Kim Clavel's scorecard was 98-92. So I haven't seen the fight. I need to watch the fight, but I would have thought that Kim Clavel's speed and movement and combination punching would have just sort of overwhelmed Evelyn Bermudez, but I guess the judges saw differently. So congrats to her. She gets to keep that belt, and Kim Clavel now either goes back to the drawing board or maybe hangs it up. I'm not sure. It would be interesting to find out. Moving on to the Matchroom card real quick. So Cameron Vong made his professional debut. He seems pretty lucid, pretty composed. He's quite big for the weight that I think he's campaigning at. I think it's 140, or maybe it might be lightweight, but he came in I think at 137, so I'm assuming he's probably going to get himself down to lightweight. But he looked pretty sharp, composed, rangy, had a nice bit of spite on the shots as well. He reminds me a little bit of Dmitry Bivol, and then a little bit of Bektamir Melekuziev. Pretty weird hybrid of the two, but that's just kind of what I saw there. But yeah, Janae Boston, he got the stoppage as well. Nico Levi's went the distance. Fair enough. The fight I mainly want to talk about before going over to the main event was Kieran Conway and Linus Udofia. Now, that was a nice competitive fight up and throughout 5 rounds. I thought it was heating up nicely. Now Linus ended up, I think, catching a solid jab to his his right eye, and the eye started to swell up. He had a bit of, he had swelling underneath the eye, but he was still well in the fight. At the time of that, I think I had it 3-2 to Conway, but Udofia was sort of, he was picking, I feel, better shots overall. Then in the 6th round, as soon as the 6th round starts, Howard Foster halts contest to go and check the eye, and Linus is like, yeah, no, I'm good. Yes, it's swollen, but I'm fine. And Howard Foster decides to wave it off. Now, I'm not going to go into my big rant. If you've been on this channel long enough, you know my thoughts on Howard Foster. I don't like him as a referee. Anytime I see him on a card, I get nervous. He's robbed us numerous times of exciting and compelling fights or comebacks. And yeah, I just don't see why he still has his A-star rating. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, the eye was swollen. It was quite badly swollen, but it wasn't the worst swelling you've ever seen. And Landis Udofia, by all rights, could still see out of the eye at that particular moment in time. You know, obviously done the same thing with the Joe Joyce fight. Now, whether you say that he was saving Joyce because he was just getting hit round after round, maybe, but Linus wasn't. Like, there was actually, you know, it was a very competitive fight, and for the most part, Linus Udofia was evading a lot, and I feel like he deserved a lot more consideration than what took place there. However, I got that one wrong. I did expect Linus Udofia to get a points decision victory. I just felt he had more experience, poise, precision than Kieran Conway, but yep, clearly that didn't happen. Moving on to the chief support, which was Terry Harper versus Cecilia Brækhus. Now, Eddie Hearn, Sonny Edwards, and the commentary team, they were in uproar that this got called a majority decision draw. Yeah, I'm sorry. I tweeted on X yesterday. Or is it still a tweet, or do we call it something else now? Anyway, I was on there. I said, no, sorry, Eddie, you're doing too much right now. To be honest, as far as I'm concerned, Terry Harper didn't even win the fight, so she was lucky to get the draw. Yeah, it was one of those sort of very close, kind of scrappy fights, but I actually scored it 94-96 to Cecilia Brækhus. I could see 95-95. Two of the judges had it 5 rounds apiece, which, to be honest, I can see where I gave the 9th round to Cecilia. I could see possibly that 9th round being given to Terry Harper. I know some other people that I respect a lot, especially when they make their calls on the you know, when it comes to sort of scorecards and judging rounds, they sort of swung it ever so slightly to Terry Harper. So if she edged the 9th round for you, then yeah, it's a draw, 95-95. So when they're going with scorecards of like 98-92 and 97-93 to Harper, I just can't see it. For full clarity, I'll tell you what my scorecard was. The very first round, I scored to Cecilia Brækhus. Rounds 2, 3, and 4, I scored to Terry Harper. Round 5, I scored to Cecilia Brækhus. Round 6, I scored to Terry Harper. Then round 7, 8, 9, and 10, I all scored to Brækhus. So that's how my scorecard went. Now, I don't know what it looked like in the arena. Maybe from in the arena, it looked like Harper was doing better work than she was on the TV. But Cecilia ultimately kept her shape better, stayed side on better, did better work on the inside, was catching quite a few shots that, you know, Terry Harper was throwing, catching and countering. Some of her shots obviously weren't the heavier shots at the time, but they were still scoring, whereas Terry's weren't, and vice versa. Every time Terry sort of threw a hard shot, it's like she kind of threw her entire body into it, whereas Cecilia looked like she was landing heavy shots just throughout the majority of what she landed. So that to me is what was scoring. I won't belabor the point. Ultimately, you know, they can feel how they feel, but that's my opinion on the fight. It was definitely a close fight. If Terry Harper had have got it 96-94, I wouldn't have complained. I even said on Twitter, you know, I had it to Cecilia, but watch the 99, 91, 98, 92 cards coming for Harper. So I was expecting it. It was one of those fights where, you know, it could have gone either way. So I feel like I also said I felt Cecilia Brækhus was fortunate to get a favourable decision, which was a draw, because she wasn't meant to win that fight. She was there to be another name on Terry Harper's CV resume, but clearly she decided to rip up the script and said, no, there's still some fight left in the old girl yet, and congrats to her for not suffering another defeat. Moving on to the main event. Now, as you guys know, you saw my prediction. I predicted that Leigh would win via knockout, although I thought it would be sort of round 10 or 11. I felt it was going to be Josh Warrington's, I thought it was going to be very edgy sort of the first couple rounds. Then Josh Warrington was going to sort of take over towards the middle, and Leigh was going to have to come through some form of crisis. But then he'd still have that power to basically that get out of jail free card. And towards around sort of 10-11, he just lands something which Warrington wasn't expecting and take him out. It happened 4 rounds earlier than I predicted, but the first half, yes, it was nip and tuck. It was edgy for the first 4. I had it 2 apiece after the first 4 rounds, but then Josh Warrington, he basically swept round 3 to round 6. It was just all Warrington, and Leigh Wood just looked lost in there. His legs looked a bit shot. He looked like he just had nothing left to give. But in true Leigh-Thal fashion, he managed to pull out the bag. Now, in the 7th round, Josh Warrington got a point deducted for rabbit punching. Now, the referee did kind of motion to him a couple times, several rounds before, look, back of the head. And Leigh Wood obviously motioned to the ref as well. So, while the ref never halted time and said, look, stop hitting behind the back of the head, he did motion to him on several occasions. Look, I can see it's going around the back, like, keep it clean. So ultimately, I guess with that, and then some of the head clashes that did occur, there was a couple. I guess the ref thought, nope, I got to take a point off now before this gets out of hand. So took that point off. Josh Warrington sort of came in, trying to, I guess, re-establish dominance to make sure he won the round, especially as he lost the point. So it would have been a even round as opposed to a winning round for him. He got caught with a shot he didn't see, and then that was the first of a five punch combination. He went down for the count. Now, the controversy comes. I think it was Bob Williams that was officiating, but I could be totally wrong on that. So he gets up off the canvas, I think about the 5 count. Walks over to his corner, but he staggers. He does stagger over. He's a bit wobbly on his legs, and he puts his arms on the ropes to the corner. Now the bell's gone, but he's put his arms on the ropes, head forward, and then eventually turns back around. Now at that point, the referee, I guess, he's looked and waved it off, probably because at that particular moment, maybe he's expecting more complicity from the fighter, and maybe he feels like he didn't get that at the 8 count. Now normally they say, especially in the UK, you have to be up and ready to fight by 8 for the ref to assess you. So if he's gone to his corner and he's turned around at 8, maybe the ref has seen that as a suspicion of you're no longer lucid to compete, because you know that the rule over here is you have to be up and ready to fight by the 8 count. Personally, while it can be seen as a bit of a bad stoppage, I won't argue anyone that thinks it's a bad stoppage. Personally, I do think he was out on his feet at the time. He wasn't lucid. He hadn't recovered, and yeah, maybe you say, okay, he deserved to have the rest. Give him the minute rest, let him come out the second, or assess him at the end of the next round, at the start of the next round, sorry, and if he's still good to go, let him go. If not, say, no, we're going to call this one off. Maybe he did deserve that moment. But as I said in the previous, in basis picks, he didn't deserve the fight in the first place. He's won 1 fight in his last 5. Now it's 1 in his last 6. To me, it didn't seem. So the ref probably thought, well, you've had the best moments you're about to have in this fight. I doubt you're gonna do any better. You haven't followed instructions. You've turned your back. Your body language has showed me that you're not ready to go. And so he's waved it off. I felt he was kind of gone. So personally, I don't have an issue with the decision, but I don't argue with anyone who does. I can see why other people feel like, no, well, look, the bell was gone. The round was over. He should have been allowed to get up and be assessed, or, let his corner get him back to, fighting fitness within that minute. I won't argue. But either way, Leigh Wood does what he does. He pulled it out of the bag again. He snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, as he's done on several occasions previously. They have said this will be his last fight at 126. He will be moving up to 130. And this apparently is in the contract that if he won that fight, his next fight will be at the City Ground for Nottingham Forest. There is no other interim fights, anything else. He said he's going to have a nice long break now. He's had 3 fights in the last 8 months, so I think he's going to now be off until maybe May or June of next year, where he gets his fight at the City Ground. It may end up being a rematch against Josh Warrington. Now, okay, I don't think Warrington deserves it, but he did put a good display on, and you can sell it. You definitely could sell it, and it's much easier to get him that than trying to bring, you know, a big American or Mexican name over that maybe the crowds over here don't know as much, even though they'll say they're going to be there for Leigh. Yeah, the whole Joe Cordina fight is a non-starter. Like, Joe Cordina will tear him apart. That's not where you need to go, you know, unless that is just the most money and the cash out. Maybe the Warrington rematch makes the most sense, but he's gonna vacate that 126 belt, move up and have a nice big payday, which, you know, I think he deserves it, quite frankly, and I've got no issue with what he wants to do next, because he's done it the hard way. So big ups to Leigh-Thal, Leigh Wood. Now, moving over very briefly to the Golden Boy Promotions card. Bektemir Melikuziev beat Atlantis Fox in 4 rounds. I did predict that. I said he gets it out of there inside 3 or 4. I think I said 3, but no, I did say 4. I said he gets it done inside 4 rounds, and that was the case. No, Fox was upset that the ref stopped it when he stopped it. He was sort of riding and rolling shots at the time, but he had been down, been taking heavy shots from round 1 up until then. Fair stoppage. I don't really have too much complaints on that one. He wasn't going to pull anything out the bag and secure a victory there. Now, Zurdo Ramirez against Joe Smith Jr. I thought it was going to be a 12-rounder, to be totally honest. I was surprised when it ended up being a 10-round fight, but it went exactly as I predicted, that Joe Smith Jr., it definitely was going to go to the distance. It was going to go points. There wouldn't be any knockdowns or knockouts. But what I didn't predict is Zurdo Ramirez to actually come out boxing. He was moving, good lateral movement, like he was on his toes quite a bit. He was picking good combinations on the inside, keeping himself composed on the inside, and sort of landing from range on the outside as well. Pretty good defense. He got caught with some really heavy big shots by Joe Smith Jr., but he rode them well, kept his shape. That link up with Malik Scott seems to be doing some business for him. Joe Smith Jr. was rugged and tough as always. Like, he never stopped throwing, never battled through. The heart was there. And whereas I predicted it would be like a 116, 112, 115, 113 type of fight when I thought it was a 12-rounder, I had it sort of a 97, 93, 96, 94 or 97, 94 type fight, but it was definitely controlled for the most part by Zurdo Ramirez. And even in the exchanges when he was getting caught with big shots, he was landing big shots back. It was one of his best performances. And I'm very keen now to see how this relationship goes with him and Malik Scott moving forward. It was a real joy to watch. And to be fair, he's never really in boring fights, even though he's a lot of the times with overmatched opponents. Like, he's still never in lackluster, boring, just one pace, one note fights. But this was a really good one. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend you do watch it. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna go watch some football, hit the gym, and do some other bits and pieces. Thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what fights you did like, what fights you didn't, anything you haven't seen that now you maybe are interested in seeing. And I will catch you lot on the next video. There should be something popping up on Wednesday. I've got a few things in the pipeline. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.